topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Camping Show. I'm C.W. Getz. It is Wednesday, January 26th, 2022. We have just an outrageous 10-degree, calm, sunny day here. I have to tell you, last night was 11 degrees below zero Fahrenheit here, and it was cold. But fortunately, we didn't have the wind, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But that is still cold, so... we're going to be a little warmer tonight, only I think 4 degrees below zero. So we're working upwards. And I think by the end of the week or toward the end of the week, we are going to be at 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're excited about that. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Sandsbug, the quickest tent you've ever pitched, by Campground Views, making camping easier, by Rutabaga Paddle Sports, providing time on the water, by Novacraft Canoe, connecting with nature since 1970. Tonight's episode is from a podcaster's view with my special guest, Marshall Mosher. Marshall Mosher from Atlanta, Georgia, is a 2015 graduate of the University of Georgia, where he completed a triple major in biology, psychology, and economics, along with a master's degree in public health administration. After graduation, Marshall participated in a summer at NASA and Google at the Silicon Valley Technology Incubator Singularity University in their annual Global Startup Program, where he worked on building adaptive virtual reality environments triggered by heart rate variability. Following his work at Singularity, Marshall combined his passions for public health and action sports with the founding of Vestigo. With clients like CNN, Peloton, and Microsoft, Vestigo utilizes the mental performance-enhancing power of action sports to create real and virtual reality-based experiences that train teams to embrace adaptability, foster a mindset of innovation, and overcome our biological desire for stability and comfort. To live by this mindset in his personal life, Marshall is an avid action sport polyathlete with multiple world-first initiatives, consistently seeking to challenge his own limits as a Class 5 whitewater paddler, paraglider, pilot, mountain biker, snowboarder, kiteboarder, scuba diver, caver, climber, and jet suit pilot with Gravity Industries. And with that, welcome to the show, Marshall.
It's great to be here.
I'll tell you what, that introduction was a mouthful for me. I like,
that's kind of a lot.
Make it through this. Oh,
my! Make a shorter version. Yeah.
Well, it's not really that. It's just a little some tongue twister. Like I think I told you before the show. There's some $100 words there that I just don't use every day. You know what I'm saying? So I had to read those slowly. So I made sure I got those. Yeah. So hey, how's your weather out there? By the way,
it's good.
You're not in Georgia tonight.
No, I'm in Salt Lake City right now.
Yeah.
It's sunny, probably around 32 degrees. I'm about to go for a paragliding flight after this, actually. So we've got pretty good winds for it, and it should be a beautiful evening flight.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. My sister lives there in Utah, and she just can't say enough about it. I mean, enough great things about it. It is a beautiful place. She showed me lots of pictures about, and they went to Zion National Park and just showed me pictures that I go, yeah, nice. I've seen a lot of those, but you know,
Utah's
yeah, she gave me pictures of places that you don't often see out there. And so I thought that was, really nice place. I hope to visit one day.
You should. It's one of my favorite states. Incredible national parks like Zion, really amazing landscape. Pretty much every type of adventure sport you can want. Some of the best skiing and snowboarding in the world. So it's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Very cool. Well, the first question I'm going to ask you, Marshall, is how did you get started in the podcasting world?
Yeah, so when I I think it mentioned this in the bio. I went to the University of Georgia for school. And at the time, I was pre-med and was planning on going down that medical school route. But I always had this passion for the outdoors and adventure. And my campus job at the time was actually as a guide for the outdoor rec program, where we would guide students
Oh,
on all kinds of adventure experiences, usually their first time going through that experience. And I really fell in love with learning the stories of some of these really incredible athletes that are really pushing the limits in all these different sports, and people who've been able to turn their passion for their particular sport into their profession, and trying to figure out how they did that, how they got started. So I wanted an excuse to talk to some of these really amazing people who, if I
right.
just reached out to them, random college student, they would never get back to me. But if you have a podcast, then people generally say yes. And if you have other people that have been on the podcast that they know, then they almost always say yes. So you just have to work really hard to get one really well-known person, and then everyone else says yes. So it was a
Isn't that
really great.
funny? It really
Yeah,
does work that way too.
it
I mean,
does.
especially for this
Yeah.
show. It's like, oh, well, I'm a no one until I have a show. And then I've had somebody cool on the show. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we'll do it now. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and I really wanted to be able to demystify that journey of how to create that type of lifestyle. So I wanted to be able to create something that would add value to those people, being able to share their story in a really easy format on a podcast. And a lot of podcasts were really inspiring me at the time, but I really couldn't find anything in the kind of adventure and travel space. So it was partially that, but also selfishly, I just wanted to be able to talk to these really amazing people that I really look up to.
Nothing wrong with that,
And,
right?
it was yeah, it was great.
Well, so let me ask you, how many years? I mean, how many years have you been doing this professionally then?
So I started that, I think, in my junior year in college. So that might have been a junior or senior year. It's probably 2013. So for a
Yeah,
while.
you've been doing this for a while. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, let me ask you this then. What type of guests do you, because as hosts, show hosts, you have to go get your guests. I mean, and by the way,
Yeah.
it's nice when they start calling you and go, "Hey, I'd like to be on your show." It's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but you had to pursue, guests at some point. And so I'm going to ask you, what type of guests did you go out and pursue to have on the show, especially when you first got started?
Yeah. So, if you're ever scrolling through Instagram or Facebook and you see all those crazy videos of someone, paragliding down a canyon and doing barrel rolls, or doing a 50-foot jump on a kiteboard over an island, you're like, wow, that's crazy.
Right.
Generally, those types of people. So a lot of the Red Bull athletes, professional, action adventure sport athletes, we interview a lot of them and share their story. But we also interview a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space when it comes to outdoor gear and starting adventure themed companies. So we've had the founders of a lot of gear companies, or the VP of Patagonia and Black Diamonds, and a lot of the brands that create a lot of the outdoor clothing and gear, but also people that are creating really amazing new startups in the outdoor space and getting their stories. And then a lot of the really amazing natural landscape photographers and videographers who are creating these incredible documentaries and movies just about these amazing places around the world. So generally somewhere in those three personas, but yeah, across the board, people who combine their passion and their profession in the adventure space.
Let me ask you a question. What do you use? What are you often surprised to learn about these people? Like, let's just say the heads of these companies. The president of the company or something. What are you surprised to hear that you're like, wow, I never would have guessed that, or I wouldn't have imagined that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, whether it's someone who starts a company or someone who becomes a Red Bull athlete, generally looking at that person from an outside perspective at where they are right now, it seems like they had a really specific plan of how to get there, and they followed very specific, well thought out track to get there, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and that's almost never the case.
Right.
Just the fact that a lot of these really incredible people who've really changed the world, both in the adventure sports space and the entrepreneurial space, had a dream, a passion, a lot of resiliency to push through years of failure and struggle, but not necessarily the kind of the expertise or knowledge that we assume that they had to get started.
Oh, wow.
A lot of times it seems like most people's biggest strength is their passion and resiliency to never give up instead of their expertise at whatever it is they became well known for.
That's
Which I thought was
interesting.
really interesting.
Yeah, I never would have really thought that. I guess you like you said, typically you think, well, they have all this experience. Of course, they're going to know everything, and that's how they, really made their company, got their company off the ground. But it's really persistence, and that whole attitude of I'm not giving up that really made that. That's interesting. Let me ask you this too. Have you ever had a guest, somebody who you expected to be this just fantastic interview turned out to be very disappointing? I ask you that as a podcaster because you have your show.
The best interviewers are other podcasters for sure.
Oh, really? Wow. How am I doing so far, by the way? Yeah.
You wait, what?
I said, how am I doing so far, by the way?
Oh, you're doing great. Yeah.
Well, good. Okay.
Well, I think, people, every now and then you'll get a guest who also hosts a podcast, and generally, that person has just had a lot of experience with, the way that interviews and podcasts or maybe public speaking work. So generally the best episodes are the ones where they have some significant public speaking experience or interview experience, but not necessarily the ones who are the most exceptional, amazing, athletes or entrepreneurs. Like for instance, one of my friends recently told me last week that she heard one of the early keynotes that Mark Zuckerberg gave at her high school way back when he first started Facebook, and she was going to high school in Brazil, and he was traveling to Brazil because his co-founder was there, and they were trying to get more international users. This was like way early on in the beginning, and a bunch of people were really excited to go to this keynote to hear this tech entrepreneur starting this new social media platform and people didn't really even know about back then because that early. And she said it was the worst keynote she's ever heard in her life, and it's Mark Zuckerberg.
Wow.
But he was a horrible speaker. So it's interesting that sometimes the most amazing, impressive people aren't necessarily the best when it comes to public speaking and interviewing, and vice versa.
Well, you know what? That makes sense. You can't be good at everything, can you?
Yeah, that's true.
Everyone's got their forte, and maybe some people have that forte and their other skills are not even in the neighborhood, but and some people's are. I can totally relate to that. Just because you are a great athlete or you're very good at whatever you do does not, like we just said, lend itself to other aspects of
right.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, what do you enjoy most about being a podcaster? I mean, what is your favorite part? Is it the meeting people, or is it just getting to travel? And by the way, our last conversation was you were sitting on the I'm going to call it a porch or a lanai or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's right.
In Brazil, in the São Paulo, Brazil, during a hurricane. Now, and I have to tell you, I have to tell the viewers and listeners here. I'm this first time I've ever spoken with this gentleman, and he's out, and I can see things going on in the background, and I'm seeing these trees going like this, and I mean they're doing almost a 180, and I'm like, where is he at? What is going on there? He's like, oh, by the way, we're having a hurricane here. I'm like, what? Really? And you're sitting out on the outside, and all of a sudden there were some crashes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You go like, what was that? I just saw this bright flash. He said, yeah, it was about 100 yards away. It was a big, huge lightning thing going on. I'm like, wow. I'm not sure I'd be sitting out there, but good for you.
I was a little worried as to whether I'd make it to this interview or not, but I survived.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm surprised you didn't go in sooner, but so I mean, you get to travel some really cool parts of the world. What is your favorite part, though, of being a podcaster?
Definitely the people you get to meet. The guests are all like absolute, heroes in my eyes. They're people that do things that I aspire to do and aspire to be like, and getting the chance to meet those people, hang out with them, be friends with them, get mentored by them. That's by far the best part about it. And giving their story a voice to be able to share with other people who are potentially at a crossroads in their life, that their story may have a big impact on their the listener's decision to go one route or another. That's incredibly fulfilling as well, to be able to use it as a tool to share these stories that create a big impact, in addition to being able to meet all these amazing people. And of course, these are all people in the adventure sports space, which I love. So getting a chance to go paragliding with some of the best pilots in the world, and go backcountry skiing with some of these incredible athletes who've just done amazing stuff, or whatever the sport is. So pretty much unlimited epic adventures with amazing people is a nice part about it too.
Yeah, it sounds like there are a lot of perks on the backside of that. If now, hey, have you ever like interviewed the like the president of let's say who owns Lamborghini now? I'm trying to think, is it Chrysler anymore or whatever? And you get to go for Lamborghini cruise with that would be fun.
That'd be cool.
I use that as but I think that's extremely cool that there are a lot of perks involved with just this, being a podcaster, that maybe people wouldn't even think like, oh wow, he just talks on the radio. But
yeah,
there's a lot more to
exactly.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, a ton of really close friends and mentors that I've met through it that I never would have had a chance to meet otherwise. But also a lot of amazing impact from the stories that you get to share and digitize for people to be able to access around the world.
Well, you just mentioned something here about developing friendships, and I know that's happened with my business here, with my show. You meet people, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, what a really cool person. And you develop a personal friendship with those people. And some of those are the best friendships that you can, that I've ever had. I'm sure you do much the same. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of hard to describe. But imagine you're just learning how to play basketball, and the court you show up to play just happens to have LeBron James playing on, and you get a chance to meet LeBron James and play with him. Like, the adventure sports space is so small that isn't that uncommon.
Yeah,
depending on the sport, where you might just show up to a place with some of these incredible people like the LeBron James of the sports, and get a chance to get to know them and meet them and learn from them. So it's a lot more accessible to be able to get in front of those types of people in the adventure sports space, as opposed to traditional sports. You never really run into an NFL football player on a random football field somewhere.
Yeah, adventure sports it really is a very small community, all things considered. And yeah, you're right. You can we had Dane Jackson, the number one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and Dane was on the show. It's like, that's
no
like
way. Yeah, Dane was on my show as well, and he's a great example. Dane is literally the LeBron James of whitewater kayaking, if not even more talented.
Absolutely.
That guy does stuff that no one has ever dreamed of doing in a whitewater kayak. And
his videos are amazing. You watch those, you go, how is that even possible? No one's doing these things,
Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, the chances of you just being on a river with Dane aren't that astronomically low, like meeting LeBron James on a basketball court. And Dane's a super nice guy. I'd be happy to show some random person down a river. So it's definitely a welcoming community, and access to some of the world's best is way better than most sports.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we were speaking about him. There is and I can't recall the name of it. I've been speaking to the people who are going to host that event. It's I think the National Freestyle Championships is going to be in Oklahoma City this year, and we're trying to work it out so that we can cover that show.
Oh, cool.
Live coverage. Yeah. So I hope that works out. But Dan will be there. I'm sure he'll be on the show again. That's kind of what our plan is. But
nice.
But you're very right. I mean, you could the big people, and the opportunity to meet them in this industry is a very likelihood. I mean, and I think that's incredible. That's one of the things I enjoy most about it as well.
Yeah.
Who've been some of your? I'm going to pick your brain here. Who have been some of your favorite guests? Have you single?
Let's
Put you on
see.
the spot. Sorry about that, but
Yeah, the guests that are really well known, um, well, that's not necessarily a fair generalization. The ones that you've never heard of sometimes have the most incredible, impactful stories.
oh wow,
Um,
yeah,
Oftentimes the ones that have had to overcome some type of massive challenge and adversity, those stories are incredible.
oh,
Um,
I bet.
and and it's it's really inspiring to hear some of the stories. Like, for instance, there's one in particular, um, who I was just talking to earlier today, actually, a really incredible helicopter pilot who started one of the largest helicopter operations in Alaska. She actually started as a pro snowboarder. That was her first thing, and there weren't really many female pro snowboarders at the time, and she was one of the first. Became really well known, really incredible in the space, and had this crazy freak car accident that someone actually hit her when she was walking in a parking lot,
Oh wow,
and pretty much ended her snowboarding career. And then she goes on to, like, through kind of a series of steps, get into aviation, learning how to fly helicopters, which is really difficult. It's very expensive to get into it, so it's really hard from a financial perspective. But also, the male to female ratio in the aviation world, especially helicopters, is like ridiculous. It's
wow,
almost all male. So getting into it as a female and then starting one of the largest helicopter company in Alaska, with coming out from a pro snowboarder background, just like
yeah,
completely different transition. It's just really incredible, inspiring, amazing story. And that's actually a good example of one of the ones that I had in mind when I said that persistence and resiliency is one of the key factors,
oh
more
yeah,
so than anything else, whether it's experience or skill, in accomplishing what you want to accomplish. And she's a great example of that.
yeah. That's completely inspiring. I'll tell you something else. What you mentioned about that accident, I think there are a great deal of people who would have let that just be the end and go, that's it, and maybe spend their lives
Yeah.
just sort of very, very unhappy about where life has, the experiences that they've had have left them. And there's an example of someone said, no, I'm not going to stay down. I'm not going to let this beat me up. And went on to do some great things, obviously, big things.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, as painful as those types of experiences are, um, our biggest challenges and our biggest fears can often be our largest opportunities for growth and transformation as well, with the right mindset.
I would agree.
And it's incredible to see what some people have done to turn situations that are the worst thing that's ever happened to them into a catalyst to create a trajectory that takes them to one of the best things that's ever happened. So
Yeah.
it's really, so much of it is mindset. It's pretty inspiring.
And I'm sure that those kind of stories inspire you to do more and to do bigger things. Use that uh, their story to sort of motivate yourself. I'm sure, right? Oh, did we lose connection?
Hey, CW, sorry. I don't know if you can still hear me. My AirPods
Yeah.
died and I have
Oh
to
wow.
reconnect
Okay.
them.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I sure can. Can you hear us?
I still can't hear you. I
All
think I
right.
may have to jump into the settings.
Let's do
Okay,
this.
now I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear us. Okay, I was going to say we can take
Yeah.
a commercial break because we're there right away. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to take a break here, but don't go away. We'll be back with more of the Camping Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV after these messages.
I love camping, but hate setting up and packing. Sound familiar? With the SansBug pop-up tent, you simply toss it in the air. Bug-free in 1 second. Cliff Jacobson, America's most published wilderness expert, has this to say. At well under $100, these tents are a bargain. They are not toys. With a well-designed tarp, they should withstand a long, heavy rain. I'm impressed by the full coverage fly. It stakes right into the ground. No short cap fly for the wind to get under. In all, I think you have an excellent product here, even though it's one designed for casual camping. namely the kind of camping most people and scouts do. The Sands bug has been used by the U.S. and Canadian military, disaster response volunteers in Haiti, ecologists in Madagascar, and doctors in the Amazon. Sands bug, the quickest tent you've ever pitched. Find us on sandsbug.com.
It's time to go camping. Introducing Campground View's virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sites, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground View's virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "We don't sell boats. We sell time on the water." Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutubaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on The Camping Show.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
And we're back with our guest, Marshall Mosher, on The Camping Show. Marshall, quick question. And I sort of alluded to this before, but I will ask you specifically, to what parts of the world has podcasting taken you? Some of the coolest places you've been now.
Well, like you mentioned, I just got back from Brazil.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Some of the best kiteboarding in the world on the North Coast. Really incredible spot. Out to the Alps, Chamonix. I'm actually going out there again in March to Val d'Isère for a speed riding course.
Yeah. Chamonix is France. Am I correct? France, right?
Yeah, France.
Yeah. And so how many different countries have you been to? Like, let's just ask you that.
I was actually trying to figure that out the other day. I think it's like 23 or 24.
That's pretty good.
Something around there.
How many years did it take you to do it? Now, this is just with the podcasting, right? These countries that I'm asking.
No, that's just countries I've been to.
Oh, okay.
Total counts.
How many has podcasting taken you to specifically?
Not that many, because most of our guests we do a remote interview style pretty similar to this. Actually, most of our episodes are remote as well. Okay. But the in-person ones have mostly been in the US. But yeah, France, Brazil. I think those are the only two countries outside of the US that I went to and hosted a podcast at. So mostly in the US. A lot of different states though.
Yeah, that's very cool. Let me go back to something here. We're talking about stories that your guests tell you and things you learn by doing these interviews. What is the most bizarre story that you have heard, that you have learned from a guest, on your show? Like some of the biggest, wow, that I never heard anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
You ever had one of those?
There's been, it depends on how you define bizarre, but there's one of my favorite episodes and just one of my favorite guests in general, a guy named Gavin McClure. He's really well known in the paragliding space, but what a lot of people don't know is actually, a professional sailor. He's circumnavigated the globe multiple times, kiteboarder. He started as a professional whitewater kayaker. And he's just got so many incredible stories. So he's really well known. He actually hosts a podcast, one of the most popular paragliding podcasts. He's really well known for paragliding. one of the top athletes in the world, and one of two from the U.S. that competes in this national race called the Red Bull Exiles, which is kind of like the premier competition in the paragliding world. But he just has these incredible stories of when he was first getting started. He was a whitewater kayaker, and he was running bigger and bigger stuff, and he practiced his breath hold time a lot, because in whitewater sometimes you can be underwater for a good bit, and you're in a rapid, you might be stuck in a hydraulic, and until you can get out and roll back up, you of course have to hold your breath.
Absolutely.
And there was this one particular waterfall where he gets stuck under this kind of like rock ledge and then pushed to the bottom of this waterfall, and was constantly getting recirculated, and he was in that for I think 4 or 5 minutes, and thought that he wasn't going to be able to get out, but finally came up, and a friend grabbed him, and that was just the beginning of his story. And then he ends up starting the sailing company.
Wow.
To take people on chartered sailing trips around the world with no sailing experience. He was literally reading like books on sailing in the boat before the clients would show up.
Wow.
But figures it out,
and they didn't know that, right? Yeah.
Probably not.
Hey, by the way, I just read this in a book on the way here, so
and then he becomes like one of the world's most just like prolific and talented sailors, and starts a kiteboarding charter sailing company where you can specifically sail to kiteboarding destinations, and then gets into paragliding like much later in life, and then becomes one of the world's top paraglider pilots.
Holy cow.
So it's just amazing story on just the importance of following your passions, persistence, never giving up, even if you have no idea what you're doing. And the fact that it's never too late to start something new. I get this all the time when I tell friends, hey, you should come paraglide with me or learn how to kiteboard. And they're like, oh, I'm too old for that. It's like, no, it's all mindset. It really is all about how you perceive the challenge, up here in your mind versus anywhere else in your body. And age isn't quite as much of a factor as people think sometimes. Of course, there are some sports that might be the exception to that. But.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is huge. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm a certain age, I'm too old to start. You know what? I don't know. When are you ever too old to do, really anything? Because I think if you're physically able, it's really just then a matter of mindset. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, for sure.
Real quickly, we're going to do another break, but real quickly, I'm going to ask you this, because this is like a personal thing that we share, and I think you know where I'm going with this. You are a drummer. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. I grew up playing drums ever since I was 8 years old, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think we were the same age when I started. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So what are you active? And I know it's difficult when you're traveling around to be with a band, but
it is hard to fit a drum set in a camper van, which is what I'm in right now. If you've been wondering about what this background is. So I travel around, I work remotely from a camper van. I'm out in Salt Lake City right now. From Atlanta, spending a lot of time out in the mountains. I would love to have a drum set in here, but I can barely fit myself in here, let alone all my adventure gear. Maybe one of those electronic sets. But I do try and play whenever I find one. Although it's really interesting, if you see a piano laying around, you can just walk up to it and start playing, and
true.
No one cares. They actually encourage it. Whereas if you see a drum set laying around, it's kind of frowned upon to just walk up and start playing it.
I think that's because we're discriminated against. Don't you agree?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, that's what. Yeah. It was funny. We used to talk about making a living beating on things with a stick, and I'm sure there's some. Yeah. But I think it's interesting, and I used to make drums. We talked about this before the show, but and I will send you one if you'd like to try one out. You just let me know, and I'd be happy to hear what you think of that.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely, but I think it's really cool that you were a drummer as well, and that was just sort of a little side thing. I go, wow, and I don't even know how I knew that, because did you tell me that, or maybe Roxy, our producer, is the one that.
I think you mentioned that you had worked on building drums when we were first talking, so that's where it came up. But yeah, that was a huge part of my life growing up. I used to get all the Tupperware in my parents' kitchen out, probably every single piece they had, and like turn it into a drum set before I even knew what a drum set was. And,
that's hilarious. It's funny because we've all done that with the Tupperware. I mean, and thank God for the Tupperware people, because otherwise, how would we have gotten started, right?
I know.
Very
It was
instrumental, pun
more
intended.
important for drums than for food for me.
Absolutely. Very, yeah, like I said, pun intended, instrumental for us, our careers, to have that Tupperware thing.
Yeah,
Great invention,
really
guys.
was.
Thank you for doing
I
that.
know. Thanks, Tupperware people. Yeah, the glass ones, they just don't work as well. So all those glass
No.
Tupperware ones, like you got to stay with the reusable plastic.
We did take the like the saucepan lids and the things like that were metal
Oh, yeah,
back
those
then.
are
And
good symbols. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that we tied the
Mhm.
string, the butcher twine to it, and and suspend that from
Yeah.
something. And those did work really well.
Those are great.
You had to chase them though, because they do one of these numbers. It wasn't
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, we're going to come back. We're going to look at some photos when we come back here, but don't go away. We'll be right back with more of the Camping Show on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV after these messages.
I love camping, but hate setting up and packing. Sound familiar? With the SansBug pop-up tent, you simply toss it in the air. Bug-free in 1 second. Cliff Jacobson, America's most published wilderness expert, has this to say. At well under $100, these tents are a bargain. They are not toys. With a well-designed tarp, they should withstand a long, heavy rain. I'm impressed by the full coverage fly. It stakes right into the ground. No short cap fly for the wind to get under. In all, I think you have an excellent product here, even though it's one designed for casual camping. Namely, the kind of camping most people and scouts do. The SansBug has been used by the U.S. and Canadian military, disaster response volunteers in Haiti, ecologists in Madagascar, and doctors in the Amazon. SansBug, the quickest tent you've ever pitched. Find us on sansbug.com.
It is time to go camping. Introducing Campground View's virtual tours. You can tour the campground, see the sites, see if they are available, and click to book your perfect spot. Hit the open road and explore the amazing places found in nature. We make it easy to discover, find, and book your site so that you can go have the fun and freedom you seek. Campground View's virtual tours make it easy and simple for you to see where you are going.
A few years ago, someone asked Rutabaga's owner, Darren Bush, "Hey, how long have you guys been selling boats?" Darren replied, "We don't sell boats. We sell time on the water." Of course, that comes in all types. We help people paddle more safely with Rutabaga outdoor programs. We rent canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. We sell and install racks to get you from home to adventure. Rutabaga's got everything you need to get you out on the water, like paddles, life jackets, dry bags, and clothing. Rutabaga Paddle Sports, on the web at rutabaga.com. Mention you saw this ad on the Camping Show.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
And we're back with our guest, Marshall Mosher, here on the Camping Show. Roxy, could we have you put Marshall's photos up there? We'll have him tell us a little bit about each of those. There we go.
Yeah, so I've wanted to give a TED Talk for a long time now, and gave my first one in Chattanooga in November. And Chattanooga is a bit of a special city for me. It's where a lot of my passion for adventure sports began. Living in Atlanta, there's not really a ton of things in Atlanta. There's great stuff around Atlanta. You kind of have to drive a couple hours, and most of it's in Chattanooga. So that's where my passion for whitewater kayaking got started, which was kind of the first thing in the world of adventure sports that got me into that space. And then that's where I learned how to paraglide as well, and a bunch of other things. So can't wait for the video on that to come out soon.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is from that Singularity University program that I did when we first got started in 2015. So it was that startup accelerator that was really instrumental in kind of my entrepreneurial journey of helping to start, a tech, um, bring a tech concept to life and start a company around it. So that was where Vestigo started and where we were introduced to virtual reality.
Interesting.
Yeah, kiteboarding. So
Yeah.
I just got back from Brazil doing some kiteboarding, and this is snow kiting. So kiteboarding on snow, which actually here in Salt Lake City, where I am right now, is one of the best snow kiting communities in the country, if not the world. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Same kiteboarding gear, but you're on skis and snowboards. And
I
it's
was
pretty
just
fun.
thinking that is extremely cool. I like that.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually in Chamonix, one of the coolest mountain towns in the world. It's where Mont Blanc is in about an hour and a half outside of Geneva, right at the intersection of France, Italy, and Switzerland. And Mont Blanc is the tallest mountain in Europe. And they have this really amazing backcountry route you can do from like the side of Mont Blanc all the way down this glacier into back into Chamonix into town. That was one of the crevasses in the glacier.
Looks very interesting.
Yeah, so when I was mentioning whitewater kayaking, that was kind of the first of my passion for adventure sports. That's a
what
river
river
called the
were you on?
Chiowa in North Carolina, actually. So
Okay.
that's a area called Bear Creek Falls. It's kind of the big drop on the Chiowa, which is a really fun dam released river. So it only runs when they release water from the dam, but they have a agreement. The whitewater kayaking community has an agreement with the dam to do a certain amount of releases every year. So everyone comes together for these releases, and it's kind of like a big community thing. A lot of people come out for it. So it's a fun place.
I like that. I like that dagger, the design on that dagger boat. That's interesting.
That's
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so when Vestigo got started, we would do real life adventure experiences as a way for companies to help their employees to get outside of their comfort zone, challenge their perceived limits, and use that mindset of navigating the unknown to be more innovative and creative and taking risks in the innovation front. So this was an experience we hosted for the team at CNN, actually, where we helped the team to literally practice taking the leap into the unknown by rappelling off a cliff over in Roswell, Georgia.
Yeah, that's great. So these two gentlemen here are from CNN.
Yeah, they're two of what was maybe a 20-person team from CNN. We were teaching people how to rappel for the first time.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's great. I bet that had to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, it's an amazing spot. It's a blast. Most of what we do now is in virtual reality, in terms of creating adventure and opportunities in VR for remote teams, which is great, super accessible. Anyone can do it, but I do miss those in-person experiences.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm sure. There we go.
Yeah, that's in Moab, actually. So Moab is one of my favorite places in the country, if not the world. Most of the Western movies that you've seen have probably been filmed in Moab, so that it gives you an idea of the landscape. But absolutely gorgeous. Some of the best mountain biking in the world as well. So that's
beautiful.
People travel around from all over the world to come mountain bike, base jump, high line, paraglide, all the fun.
There we go.
And paragliding, yes, that's Bell Mountain. That is one of the best paragliding spots in Georgia. There's not a ton, but that is one of a handful of ones that exist. And Bell Mountain is one of the best views for North Georgia as well. We can see the whole Southern Appalachian Mountain chain.
That's so cool. I was just thinking maybe that's Tennessee, but it's Georgia.
It's close to Tennessee.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Hiawassee, Georgia.
That looks so much fun. I mean, it really does. Looks like so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a blast.
This
Photo
interested me. Yes. I mean, I'm looking at this going, wow, how cool is that? It almost looks like a stage, and you've got the whole light, the smoke thing going on, but really that's just.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it is one of my favorite pit rappels in the Southeast. So there's a lot of caving in the Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia region, which they call TAG in the caving world, where a lot of that region is made of limestone, and limestone is one of the types of rock that geologically is prone to create cave systems because it's soluble. It erodes with water over time. And that's a really special spot where you can rappel in from the top and land on that little pedestal right there. And if you catch it at the right time of the day on a sunny day with those sun rays, it's one of the coolest.
And you get a picture just like this. Yeah, it looks like you're coming down from heaven. I mean,
I know. And those sun rays, the sun has to be right at the perfect angle at the right time on a sunny day. So it only lasts for I don't know, maybe 30, 45 minutes.
Oh, not that. Okay. It's a little longer than I thought, but yeah. And by the way, how long or how far of a drop is a rappel is that you'd say?
It's about 120 feet from the
okay.
top to that pedestal, but it's further if you go all the way to the bottom of the cave. But there's no way to get out from there, so you'd have to have vertical ascension gear to climb the rope. So for vertical caving, where you're rappelling in and ascending out, you generally do have to climb the rope to get back out. Going up is obviously a lot harder than going back down or going down. This cave is really nice because you can rappel into that pedestal, and there's another entrance you can just hike out. So
I was just going to ask you that. Okay, so you can rappel down, and you got the easy way out.
Not have to do the
I'm thinking that ascension. That would be tough. That would be. You have to be in shape for that. Absolutely. Yeah, this is a double. Yeah, Roxy just says this might be a double. Okay, there we go. It's this one.
Yeah, that's Havasupai, one of the waterfalls at the Havasupai Indian Reservation near the Grand Canyon. Some of the coolest waterfalls in the world. That water is like that color blue in that photo. It's like actually that color. You've probably seen. This place has really blown up since I've been there because it just looks so ridiculous and it's like Instagram perfect. But it's really high concentration of calcium in the water, which is what makes it like almost that glowing blue color in the sunlight. And then the glow of that blue water against the red backdrop of the rocks and the green moss. It's just one of the prettiest places in the world.
Very picturesque.
Unfortunately, it's extremely hard to get to now. It's a small Indian reservation, and it just got like overwhelmed with people wanting to go at pretty much because of Instagram. So they have a permit system now that you have to wait like a year to get a permit to even hike down in there.
Yeah. Interesting. Good and bad with things like in social media. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is like the sole source of revenue for this Indian reservation. So it's been great from the perspective of like supporting the community there, but it's a lot of people.
Yeah, there are some drawbacks in that way.
Yeah, you still need a permit to go in. Yeah, as last I've checked. I see someone posted that as a question.
Well, we just got a couple of short minutes left here, and I don't mean to cut you short, Marshall, but I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit about virtual reality adventure experiences that you've got here.
Yeah, so for anyone who hasn't tried virtual reality, the first thing that I got to say is there's nothing I can say that will help you understand what I'm about to say other than putting on a headset. So if you haven't tried a VR headset, your first step, your homework is just find someone with a VR headset. An Oculus Quest or Quest 2 is the one you're likely to find. It's the most popular one out there. And just put it on and see for yourself. The best way outside of that is to watch the movie Ready Player One, which is a really great Hollywood portrayal of what the future of virtual reality could look like. But outside of those two things, virtual reality is a tool that can teleport yourself in terms of you feel like your presence is actually there into a virtual environment. So because of that, you have the ability to replicate situations that you'd most likely never be in. And we use that from the context of teleporting you into this adventure environment that gets you outside your comfort zone, that challenges your limits from a mental standpoint, whether that's like, on the top of a really high cliff and that fear of heights kicks in, or in a cave where that fear of claustrophobia kicks in, whatever it is. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but your brain thinks it's real.
That's so cool.
It's not real, but the part of your brain that's responsible for creating that fear response that you might have if you're standing on the edge of a cliff about to, base jump off, that part of your brain can't tell the difference between real and virtual reality. So virtual reality can replicate that feeling, and we can use that feeling to create impactful shared experiences in virtual reality that anyone with a headset and an internet connection can do without any travel or training or cost or anything else. So of course, there's a lot of applications for that, but we use it for remote teams who want an opportunity to create really empowering, impactful team building experiences and leadership development experiences for the team that doesn't really have the chance to often get together because they're a remote team. So we'll send headsets to each individual person on the team, or the company will buy them. A lot of companies are buying headsets as a tool for remote work. And then we create the environment, the opportunity for everyone to get together in VR and facilitate these adventure experiences with that focus on relationship building and team building for remote teams.
That is absolutely amazing. That is so cool. I would love to experience that myself one day. So
it's amazing. Anytime you want to check it out, let me know. I'll send you a headset.
I may do that
for a jump set.
You know what? You might have a deal there. Well, we'll talk about that one for sure. I love it. Well, real quickly here for our listeners, because our viewers can see it across the screen, but let our listeners know where to go to listen to your podcasts and also to follow you on social media, Marshall.
Yeah. So the podcast, well, actually, it's easier to explain. You can find me on social media at Marshall Mosher on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. And then the bio link has a link that goes to a profile page that has the podcast linked in there. So you can just find me on Instagram, click on that link. And then one of the links at the page that link sends you to has a link to the podcast, which is called Inside the Adventure. And you can also search for Inside the Adventure on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, all of those.
Yeah. And I'm just going to mention Mosher is Mosher when you're looking for
That's right. Yep. And Marshall with 2 L's.
Yep. Very good. Well, Marshall, I want to thank you here for being my guest on the camping show this evening. It was an absolute pleasure having you here.
It was great to be on. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Well, so I'd like to also thank our sponsors, Sandsbug, Campground Views, Rutabaga Paddle Sports, Novacraft Canoe, for bringing you tonight's show. Be sure to tune in for next week's episode when accidents happen with my special guest, Moose Mutlow. Until then, thank you for tuning into the camping show. This is CW Getz reminding you, learn more, do more. See you next week.
See you there.